Does dispensationalism stress continuity or discontinuity? It's become popular to frame the distinction between dispensationalism and covenant theology in the language of continuity, and there are some really good reasons for that. Traditionally, it's understood that dispensationalists have more discontinuity and covenantalists have more continuity. The reason for this is evident. For instance, consider the people of God. Covenantalists stress the continuity of the people of God from the Old Testament to the New Testament. The church was in the Old Testament, they say, because the church is Israel. Dispensationalists, on the other hand, argue that there's a distinction between Israel and the church. They're both the people of God, but there's a firm distinction the scriptures make, causing discontinuity. Consider a second example. Covenantalists baptize infants because they align circumcision with baptism. They see continuity between those two. However, dispensationalists note the vast differences between the two, therefore, discontinuity. Now, here's an important question. Is continuity better than discontinuity? It seems to me that some presume it is. Well, let's think about it. Is continuity really a bad thing? We all believe in discontinuity, otherwise, we'd be under the Old Testament law and we'd be sacrificing animals. The entire storyline of Scripture is God's progressive revelation, which often causes new dynamics between God and man. So in answer to the question, does dispensationalism stress discontinuity? The answer is yes, insofar as the exegesis of the text leads us to discern a shift in God's relation to men. But note the reason dispensationalists do so. It's based upon the historical grammatical interpretation of the text. Before we leave this question, however, I do think we ought to say one more thing. I'll gladly say that dispensationalists recognize more discontinuity than our covenant brothers between the Old and the New Covenants. However, in an important sense, we stress continuity more than discontinuity when we look at the overall storyline of Scripture. Dispensationalists, in my opinion, have paid far better attention to the theme of kingdom that traces from Genesis 1 all the way to Revelation 22. There's continuity of that storyline within dispensationalism, where God, the King of all the universe, creates Adam to establish his rule on this earth. The failure of Adam leads to the development of a whole biblical storyline culminating in the second Adam coming to reign. Our covenant brothers have developed a theological system that centers on soteriology, and by focusing on that, they seem to have missed the central importance of this broader storyline. So, does dispensationalism stress continuity or discontinuity? The answer to that question is, it depends. In my opinion, we stress both continuity and discontinuity, but it all depends on the text of Scripture.